Charter California edition. I'm Brad Pomerance, and he is back. His name is Bob Dutton. He was the GOP leader in the California State Senate until term limits forced him from office. He is now a candidate for the San Bernardino County Assessor's Office. That election will be held in June 2014. Good to see you. Missed you.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Brad.
I want to hear what you've been doing since you left Sacramento.
Well, my wife had a whole list of things for me to do because in the last 10 years I was up in the legislature.
Yes, you
didn't
were.
get a chance to take care of many of the
No,
things
you
at
did
the house.
not.
But I'm at the bottom of that list now.
I was going to say.
And we decided that it was time to get back into public life.
Was it hard, though? I mean, you were really, at the top of the heap. I mean, you were the GOP leader of the state Senate. I mean, doesn't get any higher than that.
It's always frustrating, but I do believe in term limits. And I think on the whole that sometimes maybe it doesn't seem like it's the best thing, but I do think overall it's good because I do believe in the citizen statesman concept of people serving at the pleasure of the people and not to the pleasure of any particular special interest groups. And I think the longer you're in power or you're elected, the more apt there is to have some problems.
We can talk about term limits another time. I want to talk more specifically about your race to be the assessor for San Bernardino County. What made you decide to select this office? What's your background?
Well, my background's been in real estate. I've been in real estate for over 40 years, and most of that's been in San Bernardino County, and it's been in real estate investment and finance. And I was primarily a property asset manager by trade anyway.
Okay.
In 2010, I'd actually considered running for the county assessor back at that time. But situation is such.
You became the leader.
I became the leader, and so we put that on hold. But it was always my intention to come back and continue on in public service at some capacity in a nonpartisan office.
Yes, this is nonpartisan.
And so the county assessor's position, I was approached by some friends and talked to my wife about it, and we decided that
she said, okay, the committee of one said okay.
Well, we decided that, this was a good thing for me to do.
Right. Now, the assessor currently is appointed because the incumbent resigned early, is that correct?
Well, he was originally appointed, but then he ran for election in 2010.
Okay.
But he has decided not to run for re-election.
So let's talk about property in San Bernardino. Sir, I think it's fair to say that San Bernardino really faced a tremendous challenge over this economic downturn.
Absolutely.
I mean, the real estate market in San Bernardino County came out from under it like you could never see. I think about cities, Hesperia, these high desert cities where values were dropping 75% in 2-3 years.
Correct.
Give me a sense of how bad it got before we talk about how good it's getting.
Well, the problem was that we just became overbuilt. 25% of all the new housing starts were being bought by investors, not by homeowners. And part of that was fueled by the fact that we've lost so many jobs, good paying jobs. And the only way we're really going to see a lasting recovery is if we start restoring employment opportunities for the people that live in San Bernardino County.
Now, what's interesting is since the recovery began, we have heard of folks that have the money to put down a reasonable down payment, but the investors are swooping in again with all cash offers.
Correct.
And so that's causing a bit of dislocation in San Bernardino because we're seeing a bit of an uptick fairly quickly.
And we're going to have to be really careful because that could create another bubble. And if we're not really careful about what we look at. That's the reason why it's really critical right now for San Bernardino County to get aggressive in putting together some kind of a blue-collar workforce development plan that's actually going to bring employers to San Bernardino County, and that means all areas of the county have to be working on the same page. They have to be working together as a team in order to put the right image forward.
You know what's so interesting about the county? I recently moderated a mayoral debate amongst the candidates for San Bernardino City Mayor. And it's amazing how cities so close to each other are really facing different scenarios. Fontana doing very well. Rancho Cucamonga, where you live, doing very well. And down the road to San Bernardino City is bankrupt. And these cities are just 10, 20 miles from each other. Riverside, not far from San Bernardino, doing quite well. So that presents challenges in terms of development and economically and real estate-wise. How do you face those challenges?
Well, it's kind of a mixed blessing because actually when you have situations where you have distressed areas, they actually provide opportunities for investors. But it's bringing in the right investors. There's some redevelopment opportunities there. And even though we've now done away with redevelopment agencies, you can still create the right kind of atmosphere that would be attractive to investors to come in and help redevelop and rehabilitate some of our areas. But you've got to have jobs. If you don't do something to create permanent jobs,
they're not coming.
okay, you're just not going to be here.
Now, I believe that Amazon recently opened a big distribution center.
Right.
Is it in the city of San Bernardino or the county?
It's in the city, actually.
Right, and so that obviously is great news.
Yep.
Stater Brothers is still around.
They're also in the same facility. That's the old Norton Air Force Base, which is now the San Bernardino Airport. It's been set up as a logistics center.
So are you seeing more types of investment along those lines with large corporations looking to San Bernardino to develop warehouses, which some say are not?
Well, I think Amazon's actually a good example because that was a result of my efforts when I was up in
I
Sacramento.
remember that. How could I forget? I mean, that actually, that was one of your shining moments.
I was very familiar with that one, and I think
Let's just remind our viewers, if I may, because I think this really was a highlight of your career.
Well, it was one of those situations where Amazon was coming into town. It had to do with the internet sales tax issue. They wanted to try to work something out, a compromise, and so I said I would help. Providing that they would consider our area for one of their fulfillment centers. And from their standpoint, from their business model standpoint, it made sense because with the high cost of shipping and everything for air cost and so forth, to bring their fulfillment center to the area that was closer to where they were delivering products
just tell you something?
makes sense.
I have ordered products from Amazon in the morning, and they show up that afternoon.
That's right.
I'm not kidding.
And
it's because of San Bernardino.
And that's a good example as to why I think I'm one of the right people for this particular position too, because I do understand that time is money, and however we can do whatever we can do to improve the efficiency of our operations, whether it be in the assessor's office, the recorder's office, or the clerk's office.
The job, by the way, is unified assessor.
That's right.
Assessor.
And it'll be more attractive to businesses coming in if they know they have a really business-friendly agency that's going to be there to actually look at streamlining their permitting process and things of that nature.
I have to ask you about the city of Richmond in Northern California. I believe you heard that they have passed a plan, which San Bernardino County was considering, whereby the city is going to be taking by eminent domain distressed mortgages.
Yeah, I think that's you got to be really careful about that because the power of eminent domain, it's one thing when it's one thing when you want to go and take a property for a public good.
Right.
It's another thing when you're actually going to try to use that power to grab a piece of property.
Public good to help the mortgagee.
Well, except you've got a hard money loan that's been put on that property, and to just physically take it from them and somehow try to cram down a reduction in the loan value, the loan to them. You got to be careful.
In addition to, and I use this term just basically, the ministerial duties of the assessor's office, which is dealing with property values assessments.
Correct.
There's more to it. What else do you hope to do should you be successful as the assessor of San Bernardino
Well,
County?
what I want to do is be able to not only do the responsibility of preparing the property tax assessment rolls for the coming year and so forth, but I also want to be heavily involved in the economic development plan for the county. And I think as especially a countywide elected official with my background and experience, that I might be that person that can be sitting at the table with a red team, so to speak, that was similar to what Governor Wilson did back in the 80s. We formed a red team that was to cut red tape, and I think I actually can be that person that can actually let the people know, like the Amazons and the other people, that we will be there, not necessarily we're going to cut away the rules or make it, but we're going to streamline the process.
What's quite a challenge, I'm sure, is San Bernardino is the largest geographic county in the lower 48. I mean, you go all the way to the Arizona-Nevada border.
Right.
And so, challenges?
Well, it's not only a challenge, but it's actually, I was blessed to be able to serve the people of this county, a vast majority of them when I was in the Senate for 8 years. And so I'm real familiar with the county, but we've got a lot of great things happening here in San Bernardino County. And one of our biggest challenges is that we've only got control over about 15% of the territory.
We'll have to see.
But I think we actually can be the force. I think we're going to be the area that's going to lead California.
He's Bob Dutton. I'm Brad Pomerance. This is California Edition.
As of August 2013, 1 out of every how many housing units nationally have received a foreclosure filing? According to Bankrate.com, 1 in every 1,019 housing units has received a foreclosure filing throughout the United States.
Welcome back to Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. We are joined by Wendy McCammack. She is a council member in San Bernardino. She's running for mayor. That election will be held on November 5th. You're running for mayor of a city that has declared bankruptcy.
Yes.
Why do you want to be mayor of a city that's declared bankruptcy?
Well, to understand the history,
Please.
There were a lot of things that I think could have been done better and differently, much of which I did not support or voted against.
Right.
And so to have seen it, hindsight, so to speak, gives you a real opportunity to do the right thing from today forward, let's just say.
What's so interesting is one would think that voters would blame the council members for the bankruptcy. And no doubt fingers are being pointed. But I think it's fair to say, and I'm just saying this as a neutral observer, that you remain a leading candidate for that office, meaning the mayor's office. So why is it, how is it that you've been able to separate the finger pointing and still be seen as part of the solution as opposed to one of the perpetrators of the problem?
Clearly, clearly that has confused some voters.
Right.
I think the advent of the recall starting, say, back, let's just say last January, in terms of the motion getting underway, a lot of people came to me and said, you are not the reason that this all happened. We know you're not. We know you've been vocal for many years against spending the reserves, about where the designated reserves went, about $192 million this and $10 million that, and we know you've been vocal, so now's your time, you need to run for mayor.
Right.
But at that time, they didn't know that I was actually going to end up on the recall ballot.
Right, which is true. Ironically,
yes,
you are simultaneously running for mayor and subject to a recall for your city council race or seat.
Yes.
And the irony is you could be recalled and then become mayor.
Yes, and that's clearly up to the voters.
Right.
As well it should be. I mean, we're talking democracy here.
Right.
But in reality, the folks that I've been representing for 13 years have known my record. They know where I stand. They know I've never lied to them. I've been very transparent and true to them. I've been very vocal and honest. In some cases, to my detriment, you will hear people say, Mrs. McCammack, you need to be more civil to the mayor. Well, yes, but it's the taxpayer that deserves me to be vocal for their money.
And let's talk about that. I actually had the honor to moderate a conversation between 10 of the candidates for mayor recently. Of course, you were there.
Yes.
I enjoyed myself very much. And one question that I asked, and I want to ask it again, what we hear a lot out of San Bernardino City Hall is that no one gets along.
Yeah.
It's one thing to disagree about position, but there's a real animosity, hostility, enmity.
Untrue. And did you notice that, by the way, that 3 of us council members were there?
That's true.
Several other council members were in the audience.
That's true.
Did anybody have a negative word to say about anybody?
In fact, you didn't know this, but I saw Ricky Van Johnson approach you before the debate started, and I could see you had kind of a nice little wink wink interchange. Good to see you.
And he gave me a big fat hug at the end.
I saw that.
I get along with everybody.
Right.
First of all, I was born in December. I'm a very optimistic person. I get along with almost everybody. There are a few people that I would rather not have dinner with.
Okay.
I think that's good for everybody.
Right.
But in terms of the council, I get along with everybody because I know it's my job to try to get along with everybody.
You're elected mayor. What do you
am?
do?
Oh, how good.
Let's play out the role. Let's play it out. What do you do, though, to heal the city? Because that's really what the city needs, whether you love each other or not.
Yes.
San Bernardino, a city that in 1977 was named an All-American City.
Yes, it was.
What do you do to bring back San Bernardino, literally, metaphorically, spiritually, every
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, every council member has to be part of the mayor's top priority. Right now, I think the mayor's priority has only been, let's just count to 4. And practically, I understand that. The same with previous city managers. We had a city manager before this mayor came into place that did manage to get along with all the council members, have a good relationship, and bring all the good ideas to the table. My job as mayor would be to make sure that all the council members have their role played out fully for the people that they represent. whether they supported me or not, because I already know some are not supporting me.
Right.
Frankly, two are running against me.
And that's okay.
But that's fine.
I know.
It's called democracy.
I saw you interact with Chaz Kelly, one of your fellow councilmen,
Listen,
also running. It
listen.
was like you were brother and sister almost.
We
the way
are
you were,
almost brother and sister.
And you've been on opposite sides of plenty of issues.
Many of issues, and that's okay. Democracy to me is a very important thing. I think the taxpayer needs to have their representative as vocal as possible where they can see you be vocal.
Right. Let's talk
the
about
behind closed doors thing
please.
is what bothers me.
Let's talk about the future, because ironically, in some ways, San Bernardino was getting back on its feet economically, not so much the government, economically, when the bankruptcy was filed. The Amazon distribution center.
Yeah,
I mean, what a huge benefit.
Yes, truly, it looked like we were getting
Right,
back on our feet.
right.
Unfortunately, during 3 years of one of our city managers, a lot of information that should have been given to the council was not given to the council.
And are we focused on the pension side? Because that's no.
Actually, we're talking focused on restricted funds, which I think totaled about $45 million of money spent over 3 years that I personally asked for over and over again, the data for those funds. We were not given that information. Somebody had to know that money was being spent. If we had known that money was being spent and was pretty much gone, I can guarantee you that major cuts would have occurred 4 to 5 years ago.
So is charter reform the answer? Because look, in cities, kind of these mid-sized cities, city managers are so powerful. And I don't know the particulars of that
you're right.
situation.
You're absolutely right.
And so, I've said this publicly, I feel as if in a city the size of San Bernardino, Riverside, full-time council members with full-time pay, maybe you wouldn't have these issues. Be that as it may, how do you get access? I mean, you're a full-time professional otherwise.
We own 3 small businesses,
Exactly.
right?
So how much can you do?
Well, the reality is the voters in San Bernardino have wanted a strong mayor form of government
Right.
for year after year after year. It's been on the ballot several times to remove that and turn it into a strong city manager form of government and move council members full-time. That has not passed muster with the voters. I think if a mayor came forward, someone like myself,
Right.
that came forward and said, okay, here's the charter change that we should try. Voters, give it a try. If you don't like it, you can revert back to what it was previously.
Right.
But the mayor has to be the one, I think, that at least starts to lead the charge, including maybe making it less of a strong mayor form of government, more of a strong city manager form of government.
I remember I asked at this discussion, this forum, would you support turning the mayor into a rotating position like many cities? You said yes.
I said yes.
I remember that.
But I also said that I would be willing to make the mayor's position part-time.
I remember that.
And that I would be willing to run every 2 years to become more accountable to the voters.
remember that.
And I am willing to do that.
I want to talk to you about just good old San Bernardino. If we went there and we walked around,
Yep.
how is it? I get these visions of Stockton and Detroit and San Bernardino and Mammoth Lakes. I mean, is there still a civic pride?
Let me tell you something. I was at 2 neighborhood association meetings last night, 30 of one little neighborhood, and then all the way on the other side of town, another maybe 25 or 30 people. The reality is people have to take back their neighborhoods, and those neighborhoods that are worth saving, those neighbors are taking back their neighborhoods. They are being their own neighborhood watches, they're citizens on patrol kind of thing, the eyes and ears for a police department that's very short-staffed.
Right, yes.
There are neighborhoods that are wonderful neighborhoods, people that have bought their homes for not a lot of money, trying to maintain them, have some pride of
Values are
ownership.
increasing.
Values are increasing.
They are.
Do you know since 2000, when I was sworn in, City of San Bernardino has created 8,000 new jobs. I was at a meeting on Wednesday where I believe there's 4,000 to 6,000 more to be had within the next 24 months. It just has to have someone in the top spot that knows how to continue the momentum, get us through bankruptcy with a financially strict hand, which is what I have. Just ask my husband and my kids.
I bet.
And my own office.
Right,
I mean,
exactly. You're there.
We're our own janitorial service in our company.
Nothing wrong with that.
I mean, we know how to be frugal.
Wendy McCammack, I want to thank you for joining us. Her name is Wendy McCammack. She is a council member in San Bernardino running for mayor. That election will be held on November 5th. When we come back, we'll be speaking with James Penman. He's the city attorney in San Bernardino. He's on the ballot as well. We'll tell you why when we come back.
When Detroit, Michigan filed for bankruptcy protection, the size of the municipality's estate was estimated at what level? $3 billion, $8 billion, $13 billion, or $18 billion. Detroit's bankruptcy estate has been estimated at $18 billion.
Welcome back to Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Our guest, Jim Penman. He is the city attorney for San Bernardino. Ooh, it's been a tough few years, I guess you could say. You've been city attorney since 1987, and sadly, your beautiful city has declared bankruptcy. There's a lot of anger and angst surrounding that. 2 city council members are up for recall. One of them is actually running for mayor. She's a leading candidate. We just spoke with Wendy. You're up for recall. How are you doing? How's it going?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. And the bankruptcy case, which our office is responsible for, is proceeding very well. We had about a 13-month battle with CalPERS, the state pension giant that tried to keep us out of bankruptcy court. They were not successful. We ultimately prevailed last month. And we're now moving ahead with a final plan of adjustment.
And let's talk about the bankruptcy because, you know, I used to be an attorney. I guess I still am. You're an attorney yourself. And it is very intricate. A bankruptcy, I mean, forget an individual bankruptcy or corporate bankruptcy, municipal bankruptcy, a completely different beast. And so if you can kind of synthesize it to its simplest level, what exactly is happening? I guess there's not a trustee per se.
No, there's not.
Right.
Probably the most important factor of a municipal bankruptcy is that the underlying premise of federal bankruptcy law is to permit the city to continue to function and provide basic services to the residents.
And is the city providing basic services?
Yes,
it still is.
It absolutely is. And we are doing very well now since the bankruptcy was announced. We had a number of employees who retired early, as might be expected. There were layoffs.
Yeah, what about fire or police? Did you have your own, or do you have your own fire and police departments, or did you contract out?
No, we have our own.
Okay, and so are you able to keep a staff that will?
We don't. The fire department is doing well.
Okay.
It's every department has had substantial cutbacks. Public safety is the largest part of any city's budget, so of course they've taken cutbacks.
Right.
It's much more difficult with our police department. As everyone knows, in the city, we've had significant reductions in police officers. We've gone from over 300 to about 250 officers.
And the challenge is we've seen upticks in crime in the city of San Bernardino. Why? You know, is it realignment? Is it the economy? Is it the pullback on the number of officers? Who knows?
Well, it's all of those things, I think. San Bernardino has an abundance of parolees, always had.
It's the county seat.
County seat. Back in 2000, the State Department of Parole admitted they'd been dumping prisoners from Los Angeles County for 2 decades into the city of San Bernardino and other parts of the county as well, but primarily into the city. So we have an artificially inflated criminal population in our community, which makes it very difficult.
But putting that aside, I want to talk to you about kind of the numbers behind the bankruptcy. Apparently, as the bankruptcy was about to be filed, the revenues projected were $120 million, but the obligations were $166 million. It's like a third over budget. I mean, how does that happen?
Well, I can tell you how it happened, and there were several things that did. First of all, San Bernardino did not have to be in bankruptcy. 7 years ago, when Mayor Judith Valles left office, she left a $6.9 million budgeted reserve in the general fund and over $14 million in the restricted fund.
Okay.
San Bernardino is a strong mayor form of government. The mayor runs the city, and the mayor has to be on top of everything. The mayor has to pick the right people, especially to be the city manager, because the mayor chooses the city manager. The council.
It's not elected. It's not appointed by the mayor and the city council.
No, the mayor chooses. The council can only confirm or reject.
Interesting.
So
look, there's no doubt that Patrick Morris, the current mayor, a lot of fingers are pointing his way. Who knows what really happened? Because like you said, strong mayor form of government. So we really don't know what he knew, when he knew it, when. But what we do know is that here the city faces a towering debt for reasons including pension obligations, including a souring economy, maybe criminal wrongdoing, who knows? And so you add it all up, and this beautiful city that was, as I said to Wendy earlier, named an All-American City in 1977, is in pain. It's suffering.
It is, and it did not have to be. Just absolutely did not have to be. For approximately a year before we had all the information that we had when we filed for bankruptcy, employees were coming to us making allegations of things happening, and our office had an investigation open. We'd already met once with the district attorney. When the new acting city manager took office and immediately found out that we were in serious trouble, came to me right away. We immediately picked up the phone and called the DA, the police chief, the new city manager, the new finance director, and I met with the DA. Then we set up a meeting with the sheriff. There's an investigation currently going
Right.
on. But a lot of things that are illegal for cities to do are not, there are no criminal penalties for doing them.
So they may be inappropriate.
The sanctions are you have to pay the money back if you spend money from one account
Right,
for
I
something you
understand.
shouldn't have. Mismanagement is not necessarily considered criminal under California law. In my opinion, it should be.
Be that as it may.
And in my opinion, what has happened is if not criminal, it should be
But
criminal.
are we facing a situation similar to Bell where there would it's not a Bell situation?
No, this is not a Bell situation. This is probably incompetence. This is having the wrong people in charge. For example, the finance department went to a new, and the citywide, to a new computer system to handle the city's finances called New World. New World, and this happened not about a year before the bankruptcy. New World says you're supposed to take 6 months to train the employees. Then for 18 months, you're supposed to run the old system concurrently with the new. They changed the system overnight. There was no double tracking. When the experienced people left City Hall in finance, the new people were unable to reconcile the old system with the new system, and data was lost. And it's been similar to peeling back layers of an onion, and we're not fully peeled back yet.
And what's so frustrating for those of us that want government to work is those stories play right into the narrative that government is incompetent, that government is filled with unnecessary bureaucracy, that you can't trust government, and it hurts government overall, not just in San Bernardino, but the general feeling and flavor.
There's no doubt about it. And this government, the leadership at the very top, I don't mean the council, but I mean above the council, was incompetent. And what they did should not have happened. It did not and people pointed it out. Both council members, Wendy McCammack and Chaz Kelly, pointed it out. The city attorney's office pointed it out repeatedly. The finance
But
director
that being
pointed it
said,
out.
and I mentioned this to Wendy, there is no doubt that the antipathy between certain members of the elected group in San Bernardino despises the other faction of elected officials in San Bernardino. And I understand that. But at a certain point, as I said before, can't we all just get along?
You should be able to, and that's the thing. Most of us have gotten along most of the time. I've been there 26 years, and while we have disagreements, over the years they've mostly been civil. It's only been the last 7 years that they've turned the way they have
It's
been.
been absolutely
Well,
brutal.
and that comes again, I think, from the top. We have two living mayors in San Bernardino, Evelyn Wilcox and Judith Baez. Both of them are opposed to the recall, and both of them are supporting me.
So-
certainly they would not be doing that if we had the type of dysfunction
Right.
that the current mayor tells everyone we have.
Well, let's talk about the recall because, look, you've been reelected since 1987 on countless occasions. I'm sure the voters are frustrated, angry. They don't know who's to blame, who to point fingers to. As you fight this recall, what do you say? How do you explain to voters, look, I saw this coming. I tried to put up the red flags, but for whatever reason, the flags weren't flown high enough.
Most voters understand that the city attorney does not have a vote. The city attorney does not have a veto over foolish actions of the mayor and a majority of the council. Our job is to defend the city in lawsuits and give legal advice. We have no role in the budget other than our own office budget.
And ironically, the current mayor was a former judge.
Correct.
You know, so an attorney himself. So,
Well, it's
you know,
it's interesting. Probably the two worst mayors we've had in the last 2 or 3 decades were both attorneys.
Lawyers, yeah,
Lawyers,
like me and
yeah.
you. I mean, that's the
Right.
problem.
And they were
I was gonna say it.
they were the attorneys and mayors who did the most damage to the city of San Bernardino.
Well, let's just hope that as we look towards the future, San Bernardino sees better days because it really deserves it. It's a wonderful city with wonderful people. And so I'm hopeful. I'm very
Thank you.
hopeful. His name is Jim Penman. He is the city attorney for San Bernardino. I'm Brad Pomerance. Thank you so much for watching Charter California Edition.